by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
It was a dark, cloudy morning, and all through the bush, not a creature seems to be stirring, except for the termites and some bushveld gerbils. And some lions, actually. You can hear them calling far off to the southeast of us. I'll leave Brent to update you on that. But a very good morning to you. My name is Jamie, and I have Wiem, the wildebeest, on camera with me this morning. Brent is out on Rusty with Brian, and we're going to head out in different directions and see what wonders we can find for you. And on this gloriously cool morning, 92 degrees centigrade, which is a chilly 67 degrees Fahrenheit, which for us is positively frigid at this point. We've got all kinds of exciting things coming to you live from Djuma and Arathusa Game Reserves in the Sabi Sands, which is in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. And as we continue on, in theory, as we continue on, we're going to be looking for, I think, I'm going to go and see if Karula is still around Philemon's Cut Line, which is where Andrew saw her yesterday evening on the sunset safari. It was starting to pour with rain, and he had a brief visual of her. He thinks she had a kill, but he didn't stay too long to check. And we're going to head across in that direction. And while we do, don't forget, for new and for regular viewers, that we are also interactive. So not only live, but you can also send us through your questions and your comments. And you can do that on #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. It appears as though... No, that's it. Yeah, okay, if I hold my headlights on, they stay on. That's next to physically impossible, so we'll just cruise along. Luckily it's morning. It tends to get lighter as the day goes on. Just better make sure I don't miss any tracks. It'll be a bit tricky to do. Nope. A plan shall have to be made at some point. Poor old Wendy came back from the auto doctor and hasn't quite been the same ever since her convalescence. I've taken a long route around to where Karula was seen so that it starts to get hopefully a little bit lighter, and we'll be able to spot tracks in theory. But with all of the rain that we've had, not that I'm complaining, of course, with all of the rain that we've had, the soil is incredibly compact, and tracking something like a leopard on wet soil is always tricky. You'll also find that this morning, and probably for the next 24 hours, depending on the rain, we're going to show a slight reluctance to go off-road in certain places. And in fact, we won't go off-road in certain places because it will do distinct damage to the environment. Because there's been so much rain, and because there is so little grass cover at the moment, we don't want to disturb and compact the topsoils any more than they have already been. And the tremendous amount of rain that we received in one go means that the top layers of soil are already washing away into the roads. And that, of course, is one of the reasons behind, in fact, the reason behind these lovely little speed bumps in the road. They're not actually speed bumps. They're known as bolsters, and they come associated with drains that have been, so ditches that have been dug into either side. And it's specifically for weather like the weather that we've experienced over the last 24 hours. What is that? It is an elephant. Hello, elephant. I think I know you. In the darkness, Yellies don't really like light on them. So I'm not going to illuminate him too much. I'll just bounce the spotlight down there, see if that helps at all. Funnily enough, I could see him better with my eyes in the dark than I could with the spotlight. As soon as I shone the spotlight up, it illuminated the bushes in front of him. And hid him completely from view. Off he goes, and I think it is a he. I can only see one. I wonder if he's the gentleman that broke our pool deck. He looks similar in size, quite a young elephant, not too large. And he's been paying a regular visit to Inga's house, where Brent and myself and Eugene live. And his latest trick has been to step on the wooden deck next to the swimming pool. And unfortunately, it was not built in a strange construction flaw. It was not built to tolerate 6 tons of weight on a small elephant foot. Luckily, though, with all of the rain we've been experiencing, I don't think he's going to be returning to our shores, or to Inga's fence at least. We did try shutting the gate, he just stepped on the fence. I could, of course, be unfairly tarnishing this young elephant's reputation. The only time I've ever seen the elephant responsible was very much in the dark, and I was attempting to get out of our driveway at the time. Bye-bye, boy. Maybe we'll come see you when it's a little bit lighter. I'm going to make my way to where Karula was last seen. In the meantime, I'm fairly certain that Brent would love an opportunity to say good morning to you. So why don't you hop onto the back of his vehicle?
Good morning and welcome on this slightly chilly sunrise safari. I'm with Brian Joubert. Sometimes we're known as the Killer Bees. Although we have not been on the vehicle together for quite some time, we're hoping we can find you something exciting this morning. We're heading east towards the rising sun. I did hear lions calling with great gusto earlier this morning. I'm hoping that they are still within Djuma. If not, they are very close to the boundary. So we're just slowly making our way up towards some high ground to see if we can find anything. Now, isn't this incredible? We're on a live African safari. Now, a few short years ago, who would have thought it possible that we could have all of you at home joining us on Djuma Private Game Reserve in search of big cats. Very exciting stuff. And not only the big cats, all the little nunus and chojos and whatnots and whatnots. For those of you who don't know what a nunu or a chojo is, little South African colloquialisms for bugs. And after the rain, we should have a few of those about. Also, another one of my favorite smaller creatures that I've been keeping an eye out for, and that's frogs. Well, a very warm welcome from a chilly Djuma to Ben, who would like to know if we have lightning bugs or fireflies here in Africa. We do, but with this drought we're experiencing, I actually have not seen one this year. Brian, have you seen any?
No.
So traditionally, normally when there's been a lot of water around little creek beds like the Mawati, you will get quite a lot of lightning bugs or fireflies, but this year I haven't seen one. So maybe after this downpour we've had, we might see one or two. We'll have to keep checking. We do have, if we look carefully in the light in front of us here, I'm also going to just stop and listen for a second, see if those lions decide to let us know where they are. I don't know if you guys can pick up, there we go, some flying ants. So those are termite alates. Now, alates are the future queens and drones of the termite world, and they're released en masse after rain generally, and they provide a very important food source for lots of animals: frogs, snakes, particularly birds, even the big predatory birds. There we go, look at that. Isn't that pretty with the rising sun light behind? Nice job, Brian. It's not easy to try to track a little bug through the sky, but so exciting. We're just going to stop here and listen for a couple of seconds. And what we're listening for is that. Maybe I can call them to us. Definitely multiple lions calling earlier this morning. sounded like possibly a pride. And there we go, flying ants and the sunrise. And we can hear one of the first birds waking up this morning, that very loud and that is an arrow-marked babbler, quite aptly named. So, can't hear anything, so we're going to keep moving. And while we do that, a very good morning to PK in Iowa City. And PK is wondering, do we have many frogs and toad species? We do, PK. And we don't have any salamanders or newts in Africa, as far as I'm aware, anywhere. So that seems to be very much a northern hemisphere thing. But frogs and toads, we've probably got about 30 odd different species that occur in Djuma, and hopefully on the sunset safari we'll be able to hear one of my favorites. Don't normally call too much in the early morning, normally as it gets dark. It's called a banded rubber frog, and a wonderful call. There's and it's probably one of my favorite sounds in the African bush. Especially after a nice bout of rain. This is actually a very interesting question from Lance, and he'd like to know, is there a reason why termites are so ungainly in their flight? Now, they are very ungainly. You can almost pluck them out of the air, but Lance, I would say it's probably because they don't travel too far, and the ones we are seeing now have just opened their wings, so they're a little bit more ungainly. As their wings dry a bit, they can become a little bit more feisty and more flighty. But they generally are released en masse, so having expert flying skills is not necessary, because the way termites work is they release so many at a time that if even 60% of them are eaten by predators, or even 80%, 90%, there's a predator. Brian just spotted now, did it land? And that, there we go. How's that? There we go. And that is munching on the flying ants or termites. Oh, it looks like a lesser spotted eagle. You can see the white in the wing there. One of the diagnostics. I haven't seen too many of them this year. And the big birds of prey absolutely adore termites. We might find we might be seeing quite a few more birds of prey after that rain, and the big flush of insects and other creatures that come out after the rain. Sorry, but back to that. So the fact that they're released en masse in their thousands means that they don't need to be the best flyers. Because even if 90% get eaten, there's always the 10% that'll survive. So they have that as their survival strategy. There's just so many of them that nature knows that most of them are going to provide a very important food source to all the other animals out there, and only that minuscule amount will survive. Otherwise, I'm afraid we probably wouldn't be able to drive. There'd be so many termite mounds in the way. Good morning, Donna Wan, who's joining us on YouTube. Donna would like to know, do the termite alates come out of their pupas and sort of hang around underground till the rain, or is the rain a trigger that makes them come out of their pupils. The rain will be a trigger, so it might not be while it's raining. As you can see now, it could be within sort of 48 hours of it raining that will release them. Even sometimes just a very humid environment can also cause them to explode out of the ground. We have another bird of prey. Oh no, he's flying off, unfortunately. Off into the distance. Looks like a second, yep. That one is, looks, oh, maybe not, yeah, juvenile Bateleur by the looks of things. Or we will see definitely now. Oh no, I am wrong. It's actually another lesser spotted eagle. Oh, great camera work, Brian. Look at him having a good clean. He's probably had his head in the dirt, munching on alates, and now he's just trying to clean a bit of that muddy soil off his face. And as you can see, just below him, two fork-tailed drongos who are probably not too impressed to have a large predatory bird in their presence. And you can just see the termites floating through the shot every now and then. Oh, hornbill there, also feeding on the termites. There we go. So, also nice, it gives us a chance to listen now that we're up on the high eastern crests of Djuma. Let's see if we can pick up any audio from those lions. Oh, you see the drongos. They too might just be a little bit distracted by the fact that there's so much food around and they're ignoring their normal. There goes two termites attacking of the birds. Sorry guys, just got to be on the game drive radio for a second. Good morning, Andrew. No updates. We had another audio to the south and east early on this morning. I'm following up on that. Jamie is heading towards last position of Karula.
Thanks so much, Brent. Morning. You don't mind me coming in the area, have a look at Karula. Was in a dock yesterday. Then, yeah, I'm also going to help around if there's Ngalas around.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. We look forward to seeing you. Look at that. Brian tracking an alate through the sky. And that is no easy feat. Now we just need some form of bird to just pounce on it. Well, next time. Now, who's the predator? There we go. Now that is a little termite alate there. So incredibly rich in proteins and eaten by many people all over Africa. As a kid, I was attracted to light. With the Zulus I grew up with, you make a big fire and you just put a pot of water on it. And then they're attracted to the light and they land in the water and they're actually trapped. Oh, where are you going? They're actually trapped by the water. Their wings sort of get really stuck on the water and then you just pluck them off and eat them. They're quite yummy. Other people like to fry them in a little bit of butter. They have a very buttery, almost peanut buttery taste to them, even when they are raw. Speaking of winged creatures, Siberia is asking me to try find some lacewing dragonflies. Well, unfortunately, Siberia, a lacewing is not a dragonfly. It is actually the adult of an antlion, which is a little creature who makes those spiral holes to catch different ground-dwelling insects, and the lacewing is the adult. There's or damselflies. So we're gonna struggle a little bit with damsels out here. There's been no permanent water around, and damsels need water to finish their life cycle, like dragonflies. So there might be some around, but they're going to be quite difficult. But a much better chance of finding a lacewing than a damsel or a dragon. Ah, imagine that. Imagine if we find a damsel in distress with a dragon. That'd be quite sick. Sorry, sidetracked by tracks. It's incredibly difficult to see tracks nicely. On the radio again. Go ahead.
Can I have a route update? Anywhere you'd like me to check?
Good morning, James. It was line audio. It sounded like south and to the east. I'm on Cheetah Cut line at the moment. They also sound like it could be some audio around Buffalo's Hook. Jamie's following up on the last position of Karula around Philemon's Dip. I'm not sure what the update is. I heard she was going for a stroll. But wherever you would like. But Jim is out on a tracking team, seeing if he can give us a hand in locating some animals. There's much debate whether we're going to get more rain today. I feel we might, but a little bit later. So even though it's clearing up here in the east, our rain normally comes from the west, and that's looking a little bit more dark and ominous. I don't think it's quite going to be like the rain we had yesterday morning. Morning, Rhonda in Georgia. She'd like to know how many inches we got. I'm afraid, Rhonda, me and metric conversion to imperial is not a good combination. I can tell you how many millimeters we got. We got 63 millimeters, which I think is around 2 and a bit inches. I'm not 100% sure on that, though. There we go. It is about 2 inches of rain. I only know that because I think we were trying to work it out yesterday, and it's sort of somehow that figure stuck in my brain.
No, the kill itself was right on the edge, visible from the road. Lying, it was kind of under
just listening to the radio.
Like a log in the ground.
Okay. No line tracks so far. And we're going to move all the way down Cheetah Cut line, right down to the northeastern corner, and we'll listen again for a little bit from there. A very warm welcome to Temba, who's also joining us via YouTube. Temba would like to know, with the extra rain and water, will it attract more animals onto Djuma? Temba, actually the opposite. So while we had only those 2 water sources on Djuma, those would have attracted a lot more animals into this area. Now, with the rain and water being spread out throughout the reserve, the animals will spread again. So the opposite is actually true. When it rains a lot and you get lots of rain around, the animals actually spread out. It is a good thing. It puts less pressure on those specific areas, but it is one of those things. So that's why generally your game viewing is always, well, not to say better, but more concentrated during dry seasons and droughts. So even though we've had 68 odd millimeters of rain, it is by no means the end of the drought, unless we get a lot more rain in March, because We've still only had about half of our average rainfall for this time of the year. Normally the grass would be knee to waist height at the moment. As you can see, it's minuscule. But this little bit of green flush will be great for the animals. Fatten them up a little bit before a very hard dry season. Now, while we continue to peruse the eastern boundary, let's go have a look what Janie's up to.
As Brent checks the east, I'm checking the southern side of Philemon's cut line. We're just going to do a brief off-road to where Karula's kill was. You can see the tracks moving through the area, the vehicle tracks, so she was obviously in this position somewhere. Now, originally, I went walking to the north of where we are because I was fooled by other vehicle tracks. But I'm pretty certain this is where she was. I spoke to Lex on the Game Drive channel, and he said it was visible from the road on the southern side. I abandoned my walk because I could hear our elephant making his way slowly towards us. So I stopped at that point. He said the kill was under a dead tree. Let's just have a look around carefully from where we are. My suspicion is that it is probably gone. Given Karula's current appetite, it might have been under this fallen marula. Any sign of anything? No, not quite. Checking all of the trees at the same time to make sure I haven't seen her hoist it. If she is feeding little ones, which she is, then she's going to be one hungry lady. And I've seen Karula devour a steenbok or a deka in less than half an hour when she wants to and when she's hungry. So it could still be, that could be the case. She might have finished it off and moved off, particularly if she wanted to go back to her cubs. If they are still denning where we knew that they were denning on Gowrie Main, let's just do a loop around here and double check that. Checking up in the marula trees. Generally when leopards hoist their kills, so when they take them up into a tree out of the reach of hyenas, they put them in nice, large, thornless trees, which makes sense because you don't really want to have to be dodging thorns, like the one in front of us. I don't see anything in there though, and she probably doesn't look like it's a very nice shape to pop a kill there. Oh, it looks as though Karula has moved off. Even so, keep your eyes peeled for spots or flashes of white. Now, in the next few months, she's going to start taking her little ones with her when she has kills, but at the moment, I think they're probably still a little bit too young. She might be stashing them somewhere close, but being Karula and being the experienced mom that she is, probably won't risk bringing them to the site or the exact site of a kill where they run the risk or where a kill might attract the attention of hyenas. Let's just do one more check in case I missed her. It's so easy in this light, and leopards are so very good at being camouflaged that it is a possibility. I don't think so. I think she's moved off. In that case, we're going to meander our way past Treehouse Dam. The thing about the rain is that she doesn't really have to walk far for water. There'll be groundwater absolutely everywhere. Let's go and investigate. We'll make our way to Treehouse and along there. If her cubs are still to the south or on the southern boundary, that's the route that she's going to take. I'm not going to go and check out the den site. I'm just going to follow the route that she might have taken along the way. See if we can't catch her walking back towards them. Karula, you're hiding under bushes somewhere. There's a very good question that's come through from Musical in Colorado Springs. And Musical was wondering, because she's heard us refer to bodies of water as pans, was wondering what is the difference then between a pan and a pond? And it is a really good question. We generally don't refer to anything out here as a pond. I think a pond is a more sort of, well, actually, it's not something that we use at all in the wilds of South Africa. Whereas a pan is generally natural, but not always, but it's quite a small body of water, as opposed to a dam, which is a naturally made, a man-made structure and much larger. So treehouse dam with a big dam wall is the dam, whereas pans usually constructed, let's go this way I think, usually constructed from little puddles or places where the water collects, and then something like a warthog will go and have a bit of a rub around, and then something like a buffalo will go and have a little bit of a wallow, and just gradually they get bigger and bigger and bigger and form these lovely natural what we refer to as pans, normally much smaller than a dam.
Jamie, apparently you didn't go down.
I'm just sorry, I just heard my name on the Game Drive channel.
I don't know if you want to check it. I'm sure she probably did get the right place. Okay, copy that. What are your plans? Where are you going to go?
Okay, I'll let them finish their conversation before responding.
Head straight up to that other impala and just see.
So a pan is a bit smaller than a dam, and it is often natural, but you will hear us refer to the Juma pan, which is pumped, as a pan, and that's just because it's much smaller in size and naturally constructed out of a very thick clayey mud substance on the top of rocks or a rocky basin to make sure that that water doesn't seep away into the ground. And you'll usually find pans situated, natural pans, around seep lines, because the water has to come from somewhere, and it generally flows through underneath the top layer of soil and collects there. I don't know if Brent has probably gone past Chele Pan on Twin Dams. He might even have showed you that big body of water that's collected overnight. It is incredible how fast these natural pans, here we go, here's a nice natural pan. There you go, here's an intermediate section. It's not quite a pan, and it's more of a wallow, but it is going to become a pan at some point. And that's what I mean when I said that Karula doesn't really have to walk terribly far in order to find nice water. You could always come and have a drink around these little spots here. So it collects as a puddle and then gets gradually deeper as animals wallow in it. It's one of those ways in which the animals have an impact on the environment around them, essentially creating, in the rainy season at least, natural water stores for themselves. Karula was fortunate enough to catch a kill last night. And the kahumas have also been moving through the area. We heard them calling all the way on the other side. They were on Simbabili yesterday. But every time we see the general game species after a cloudy morning like that, we know, you can see how incredibly nervous they are. And that's because they're robbed of their senses. It's dark, it's wet, the wind is blowing. They can't smell anything, they can't hear anything. So that answers Brazos's question, which is yes. Predators, big cats, will hunt in the heavy rain. They don't necessarily go and sit and shiver under a bush. They will stride through it and take advantage of it while it lasts. It's perfect hunting conditions for them. And what's a little bit of rain to come between you and food? Not something that they want to miss the opportunity for. Those robbed senses of the general game species make it a lot easier for the predators. And most of I would say quite a few of the kills that I've seen happen, physically seen with my own eyes from start to finish, have happened in half dusky light in the rain. That being said, the sun is on its way out. I can see rays of light touching the trees, and now it's going to get interesting. Hello, sun. Don't get too hot. The clouds are going to start burning away. I think, however, this rain system is still moving through. There's always the chance that more rain is on its way. But now, as Brent said, he mentioned all of the frogs and insects. We're going to see lots of insects popping out. The birds are all going to be happy once again, reveling in the water and the greenness and the increase in insects. And of course, you'll notice us going very slowly through every puddle in the road, just to make sure that the terrapins can move out of our way. I think somebody was calling me. Okay, boy. Very skittish zebra. As I said, all of the general game species a little bit nervous.
Looks like Karula here crossing south, east of Loyalty, into Little Gary.
Good time. At least we were heading in the right direction.
Thanks, Andrew.
That was the plan we had. But she's just gone over into Little Gowrie, and she's got her cubs. She's got her cubs around a drainage line on Gowrie Main itself, which is an interesting choice on a main road, but probably a very deliberate one. Almost constant vehicle traffic up and down there. But there we go. At least we know where she is, and that we didn't miss her hiding in the bush somewhere. Speaking about Karuna's cubs, Mimi, who is 15, is a little bit concerned that there might be a risk for Karuna's cubs being run over by vehicles going off-road. Mimi, don't worry. It is a restricted sighting, and which means that people, even if they bump into them, can spend a little bit of time with them. They can't call other vehicles in, and then they immediately have to move off away from them. Nobody here is going to push going off-road, and even if they were off-roading, let's say that they didn't know the cubs were there. Everybody in the area knows that they're around that position, so everybody's going to be extra specially careful. But even if somebody didn't know, the likelihood of those cubs coming out of their hiding place and being in a risky position without their mother around is highly, highly unlikely. I cannot think of one example in the entire history of what I've heard or what I've experienced in the bush where a leopard cub has been run over by a vehicle. And particularly in the Sabi Sands, where the standard of guiding is exceptionally high and rigorously enforced, it's not something we need to worry about. And they're not going to go wandering across, even if vehicles from external to the Sabi Sands, something like a truck, for example, would come through, they're not likely to pop out and lounge in the middle of the road. So never fear, I'm not at all concerned about their risks of being run over. There we go, another male zebra. Different, I think, to the one we just saw, but also not all that keen to be seen on camera. I said that we have nothing to concern ourselves in terms of the positioning that Karula has chosen in terms of her den. And that's partly said because Karula is an exceptionally successful mother in terms of raising her cubs. Marjorie was wondering how many births do we have on record for Karula and how many of those have survived to adulthood. And the answer is, let me go through this in my head. Regular viewers, some of our older viewers, you will be able to correct me if I'm wrong. First was Shadow and Tundi, both of whom have survived to adulthood. Second was, is it Shimbambalan that was next? That's where I get a little bit shady, is the birth of the litter after Shadow and Tundi. And there was Mishu and Induna, Quarantine and Kunyuma. Wait, lost track. Shadow, Tundi, Shimbambalan, Mishu and Induna, Quarantine, Kunyuma. Then there were the 2 cubs that were killed, so that's 9 births, plus the 2 that she has at the moment. But they have, so the 2 cubs that, or the 1 cub that was killed, I'm not sure if it was 1 or 2. And in fact, I don't think it was ever fully established in that sighting. It was a little bit chaotic. I think that was incredibly sad to witness. But in terms of, I did say Induna and Mishu. I did count them. So she's actually been hugely successful, Marjorie. In terms of a female leopard's job of raising her cubs, it is a very, very difficult job that she has. We've spoken before about it and how high the mortality rate actually is. I'm just listening to Game Drive channel updates. It is the mortality rate for leopard cubs sits somewhere around 70%. So as an average, over half of them die before their first year. The fact that she has managed to raise so many successful litters is testament to her skill and her, I think I can term it this way, her canniness as a mother. Just correct me if I'm wrong, one of our regular viewers who's watching at the moment, Shimbambalan, there's one other. She has a daughter. Because Shimbambalan's a male. You see, it gets tricky for me where they're leopards that I have never seen before. Shavinzi. Here we go. That's something coming through. Thank you very much. I think I've got them all now. Either way, if we compare her to her poor daughter Shadow, and I'm not saying that Shadow is a bad mother, she's just been hugely unlucky in her time, and she has essentially not managed to raise 1 cub past a year old, except for Sindile. And of course, Sindile with that incredibly unfortunate incident where he managed to catch a stray or a feral dog that had come in from a neighboring township. And it turned out that dog was tested and tested positive for rabies. Now, Sindile, luckily it was seen and luckily he was caught before it had a chance to infect him, so they were able to give him medication and able to vaccinate him. There's also a lot of studies being done that show that leopards might actually have some level of immunity to certain strains of rabies, which is very interesting. Oh, Shadow has cubs, by the way. This is wonderful news. I told you that I thought she did, but that I wanted to confirm. I have confirmed, and she does have cubs. At the moment, they're still very, very young, so we won't get to see them for a little while, but we'll all be keeping fingers crossed on her behalf. Amazing. Mom and daughter had cubs basically within the space of a week or 2 of each other. Now, this is lovely news. With all of the rain and with all of the access to plentiful prey, the prospects of survival are maybe better than they might be on a normal year. But perhaps the drought has at least benefited certain areas of the population out here. Here's one of the last woodlands kingfishers. A lot of them have been moving off. What's happened? Why is everything so upset? Squirrels are furious. Franklin are furious. What's going on here? Hold on. Let's just go back. answer is, oh no, that's a roller. I thought there was a little bird of prey flying overhead. Nope, it's not that, but something's upset these squirrels terribly. There's a little dacre in there that I can see. It's just dashed away from over there, but then stopped. Let's go and explore here. That squirrel's very angry. Is there a bird of prey that I haven't spotted? Or is it a snake? It could well be a snake coming out after the rain as the weather starts to heat up. But it's got the francolins upset as well. Just for a moment to figure out where that's coming from. You can hear that chugga, 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 chugga.
There should be that tree over there. There should be that palm tree over there at the back.
Can you see something there?
There's lots of activity.
Pardon?
Lots of activity.
Lots of activity there. Squirrel very unhappy. Franklin's very unhappy. Let's just go around the corner. I don't want to drive off road here unless I absolutely know that there's something here. The drongos are also alarm calling. Let's go around to the other side of the drainage line and just see if we can't figure it out. There's a couple of things it could be. It could be a snake coming out after the cold, and in fact, my guess would be that is what it is. It could be a leopard. There's a distinctive possibility that that is the case. Or it could be a bird of prey. Now, I'm looking carefully up in the trees to see. Upset everything around here. Whatever it happens to be. We're going to go through a dip. Just stay with me. All right, squirrel, what have you spotted? What is here? Everybody keep your eyes peeled if we can't figure out what's got these guys so upset. Checking down into the drainage line. The leopards love this drainage line that runs from Treehouse Dam. Drongos are unhappy.
Right here.
Pardon?
This tree right here.
Okay, let's go forward a little bit and investigate. Forgive me if I'm not hearing your questions at the moment. We just have a slight radio issue. Maybe the weather's playing games with us. The angry birds. Drongo is calling. Squirrel is still shouting. Hornbills are now cross. I wish I could see that squirrel. I wish I could see where it's looking. The francolins have gone quiet again, but the squirrel has not. The squirrel is still furiously shouting at us. Now, drongos, if it were a bird of prey that were upsetting them, so the francolins are shouting as well, which means that whatever the threat is, it's a threat to them as well. Now, if it were a bird of prey, the the fork-tailed drongos would almost inevitably be mobbing it. They are very gutsy little birds, and they're not afraid of tackling a bird much, much larger than them. So I think we can pretty much cross that off our list of possibilities. Squirrel's gone quiet now. I don't hear. I'm just sitting listening. I'm trying to work out where it is, whatever's upsetting them. Squirrel's still calling off that side. Let's go back and just check the dam wall quickly. We'll go along to that side. Checking deep in the drainage line. So leopards love to use drainage lines as basically little mini highways. They enjoy it because they're protected, it's dense, they can use their camouflage to its best use and move fairly undetected, except of course for the sharp eyes of the squirrel, if in fact it is a leopard that they're alarm calling at. Dacre, the reason I felt like it was while I search for whatever these animals are alarm calling, I found a buffalo herd to show you.
Females. So we've come across a nice big herd of buffalo. Sorry guys, I'm busy doing virtual reality at the moment as well, so you have to excuse if I repeat myself. There we go. Buffalo all moving up towards the crest to the northwest of us. There's still some on the left as well, the odd cow. There we go. It looks like they're going to move away from the drainage system. And there you go, there's going to be a very happy buffalo, an old cow coming towards us now. And you can see how her hips are sticking out. So this little bit of rain and green flush might make her life last a little bit longer. Hello, old lady. Amazing how quickly these animals are able to pick up condition. Oh, and we've got others grazing right to the right of us as well. We are going to get engulfed in this buffalo herd. Little boy over here. There we go. We can see the young male, he's still got hair on his boss. It's amazing, we're just going to sit quietly and listen to these buffalo as they move around us. You can hear their footsteps. Buffalo argument there. Another old female coming towards us here, Brian. But she's looking in a bit better condition than the other one. And she's lifting her nose at us. Hello, old lady. It looks like she's got a bit of a scar on her rump. Looks like it's healed though. Oh, she just spotted a little dyke ran past her. Little antelope. Morning, Lex. Morning, everyone.
How's it?
Are you getting yourself? Ish.
The dragon check around.
She walked as well.
And
Nothing. No. And then I heard Andrew just found her crossing.
Yeah,
Oh. I'd say those lines are somewhere just below Cheetah Cut line, right in the corner. So Torchwood side, somewhere around there, maybe Second Rock.
That could be in Torchwood.
Yeah, or the males that were calling this morning.
Okay.
Yeah. Good luck.
Thanks.
Enjoy.
Guys,
Okay, well, let's swing around. Most of the buffalo have got past us now. Hello, buffaloes.
Morning, citizens. If you see anyone out on the right?
Okay, well, let's get closer to these buffalo here. And the majority of the herd is headed up towards the crest there, where there's going to be probably some nice grass going up seep lines. And we're not going to drive off-road after them after the rain, especially not coming from the base of the crest up. We might affect some of the seep lines. Oh, look at this female. Yum, yum, yum. So buffaloes are bulk grazers, so they're not as worried about what they eat as something like a wildebeest. And they do eat certain leaves of trees as well, but generally their preference is grass. Oh, look at that wound on her back. That looks like maybe a fungal infection, but the oxpeckers have been keeping it open. So there's little birds that eat the ticks off lots of different animals out here. If they find an open wound, they will keep it open to feed off the blood. Little vampire birds. There we go, you can see a buffalo quite close to that virtual reality rig there. So we're going to let the buffalo herd move along, and we're going to do the same. So you're just going to have to excuse me for a second while we do a little bit of a clap. I'm just going to move away from the buffalo, not to give them a fright. And so we can switch off the virtual reality. Okay. So here we go. Am I good, Brian?
That's good.
That's good. Anyway, thanks, guys. Thanks for bearing with us while we do that. But now back to your undivided attention. A nice herd of buffalo, about 150, 200. And as I said, we're not going to go careering off-road, especially after all this rain. There's going to be those wonderful natural seep lines that I know a lot of you have heard me talk about a lot. How the movement of water from the crests into the creek beds. And if you drive through them and cause deep ruts, you actually stop the natural flow of water under the ground, so we don't want to do that at all. There are places we will off-road without abandon, but especially here at the bottom of a crest, we don't want to affect any of that natural flow of water. It's the lifeblood to a lot of grass species, and in being the lifeblood to a lot of grass species, it immediately becomes the lifeblood to almost all your grazing species, especially now that we're going into a very dry time. We're driving along actually a fire break here at the moment, and Lael in Washington is wondering who is responsible for the road maintenance and design. If it's individual landowners, where do they get their ideas from? Well, Lael, you have certain roads like the boundary roads and the cut lines like this, which is a fire break, where you can see it's been cleared of trees. And this is to stop a runaway fire, which I don't think is going to be a problem this year because there's no grass to burn. But most other roads will generally follow old animal paths, elephant paths, and that's why we often have animals on the roads. all will follow drainage systems, and it is up to each individual landowner, and they will all have a team. Most of the roads here in the Sabi Sands have been here for many, many years, so they were put in probably 20, 30 years ago, a lot of the roads. And also they will follow sort of short grass areas where you're likely to see a lot of your grazing animals, run along the edge of creek systems where you're likely to find leopard, and as I said, utilizing old elephant and hippo paths as well. Sounds like all the Franklins woke up at once. So what we're going to do is we're going to start heading towards the western sectors of Djuma. We've checked the east quite extensively, and maybe we'll get some luck with something in that area. So a very grey morning to Donna in Rhode Island. I thought we might get some light through, but it's disappeared. So, but Donna's wondering, that wound we just saw on that buffalo cow, would it attract the lions? It's very unlikely to, that specific, just that little wound. What's going to attract the lions is the sound of the whole herd. So it's unlikely they're going to smell that little bit of blood, and especially since it's not actually pouring out, it's just sort of sitting there. But they will definitely be attracted to the sound of a buffalo herd, all that lowing, and all those sort of noises. That's what's going to attract the buffalo. No luck with those male lions in the east, so fingers crossed the Nkuhumas have come back from the west. So we're going to make our way slowly towards there, seeing what we can see. And the wonderful thing about being out here is you never actually know what we might find. Morning, James, Richard. It seems like you, myself, and Brian are on the exact same page. So just before we came across those buffalo, we were on our way to Sydney's dam to see how much that's filled in the rain. So, James, you're on the same page as us, and that's exactly where we're heading at the moment. William in Rhinelander is wondering why we haven't seen elephants digging in riverbeds this year. Is it because of the dry conditions? Most definitely, William. So that water table has gone down below a point where the elephant feels the reward of digging there is worthwhile, or the energy expended. So they have been accessing the pumped water holes. But after a big rain like that, the water table should rise, and we might, if we're lucky, see some elephants digging in the riverbeds in the next couple of weeks.
Which way are you going to go from there? I'm still undecided. I was going to just wait. I was going to go towards
possibly there, but then maybe take long pole heading eastward. See what it's
Oh, what have we got here? Nah.
Okay.
Just a hippo wandering down the road. And the roads are very hard at the moment to see tracks, so I'd love to show you one. I'll wait till I can maybe find a clear one where the hippo stood in the mud. So strange enough, as just got a comment in from Deborah, the armchair traveller, wanting to see some terrapins in all these puddles. I just saw some terrapin tracks crossing the road, obviously in search of one of said puddles. But we will keep a lookout for you, Deborah, for terrapins in the puddles. Getting a bit chilly now. It's almost like the temperature's actually dropped since when we first started the sunrise safari. Now look at that, Brian. You got it there. So from the rain, actually getting into a crevice in this rock here, it actually caused a piece of the rock to fall off. Isn't that incredible? So there's attrition in nature at work. And there's a little piece that's obviously come out from in between the two rocks. But you can see how this is all very clear and clean and sort of orangey compared to the dark top side that would have been exposed to nature, where the inside hasn't. No, a bit of lichen and stuff growing on the inside, but not too much. There's the main culprits, I think, to causing that fissure in the rock. So we've got a couple of little tree species that have actually caused, more than likely with their root systems pushing through into the ground, a little knob thorn there, and what looks to be a little comifera or corkwood there. It's probably the corkwood that's pushing those large roots for a very small tree that has caused that rock to crack open. And you can, if you have a look there, Brian, you can actually see some of the roots that have been ripped from the parting of the rock. Very, very interesting. There you go, you can see the roots sit nicely. So obviously those are only the roots we can see. There you can see a bigger root on the little corkwood to the left. Fascinating stuff. So everywhere we look, there's water at the moment. That is wonderful. And let's have a look. We can see a terrapin in here. I'm just going to be on the radio with James. Standing by.
And what's your position?
Buffalo's Hook cut line.
Okay, never mind, thanks.
James, I think that audio from this morning was to the east of Cheetah Cut Line, and ahead towards the western sectors now.
Copy, I'm not late, but I just had audio to the south. Sounds like one group quite far south, one group just south.
There we go, update from James on those lions. As I said, it sounded like they were out of our traverse area. Unfortunately, they were. So, unfortunately, it sounds like the males, the Birmingham boys, are causing havoc to the south and to the east. So, Sand Blaster on YouTube would like to know if there are any interesting rocks on Djuma or Arathusa like diamonds. Well, I think if there were diamonds, there'd be a little bit more people around here trying to mine them. So there's no, as far as I'm aware, there's no precious stones in this area. We have, well, it depends, they're all interesting rocks, in my opinion, but so what we saw there was actually a little bit of dolerite, but we got a lot of granite, dolerite, rhyolite are probably our three, and in certain parts to the south, gabbro, which is a type of basalt. So those are the main types of rocks we get around here, and with a lot of quartz. So the quartz is quite often associated with the granite. But we don't have any big sort of rocky outcrops and stuff. We do have some of that sort of crumbly rhyolite like we just saw around some of the water holes. I'm sorry, creek beds. And that was actually at the head of a creek where we saw that broken rock now. Now, with a large amount of rain in a short time, it does cause certain critters to have to move house. And here we go. There's some red ants doing just that. And you can see, once we find what's in there, I think we can see them there. We have an open spot. Now they're all going one way. So obviously their old nest got flooded, and they're heading to higher ground. They actually carry all their eggs along with them. These particular ones you don't want to get too embroiled with. They will bite, and they will bite quite painfully. So you'll notice some of them have bigger heads. Those are the soldiers, and even though they're not tiny, they do pack quite a punch. So as they move, you can see it's happening there a bit more. They're trying to build a canopy over the tunnel to have themselves less exposed from potential predators. So where the ground's very hard, they're unable to build such tunnels, but just their walking, come back a tiny bit, just their walking creates that dip in the ground. So thousands and thousands of little feet up and down.
So breeding out of elephants. Gallery, cut line, boundary. Just east of the gallery.
Okay, so we're going to keep heading towards Sydney's waterhole. While we do that, let's go see what Jamie's up to.
Found some very skittish warthogs that have just crossed Gowrie Main. Now, VM and myself, just to quickly update you on all of those alarm calls, because I'm sure you're wondering what the fuss was all about. We're fairly certain we discovered the cause, and you won't believe it if I tell you that it was a pearl-spotted owlet that was causing that ruckus and the alarm calls from the squirrel. A pearl-spotted owlet, for those of you who don't know, is one of the smallest owl species that we have out here. It's roughly the size of my hand, and yet everything was absolutely terrified of it. And we saw it, I called it out. It came shooting over my head. By calling it out, I mean I imitated its call. That was what was upsetting everything. They were all two warthog females covered in mud, but not very relaxed. The one was looking at us and giving the odd grunt every now and again. They have this wonderful, when they're not quite sure what to make of you, they have this wonderful posture where they lift their heads up and snort at you, as if to say, I don't like this, I'm not happy about this, I'm very disgruntled with this. There's one still visible, so let's maybe just have a look at it before she disappears into the bush. She is going to go soon. There's two warts on the top of her head, what tells me that she's a female. Plus the obvious way is fairly obvious in warthog as well, if you get a nice back-end view like this. And up until fairly recently, this used to be the extent of our warthog sightings. They used to see us and immediately disappear into the bush. It seems as though the drought has relaxed them to some extent, and they're feeling a little bit better about people's presence. We've had some really nice sightings with females and their youngsters. I've come along to Gowrie, Main, because while we were walking in the drainage line to check for what was causing all of the alarm calls, we heard lions calling. I know that James has heard them. He's out on tracking team. He also heard them. Unfortunately, they're somewhere, I suspect, to the south of us. But basically what I'm doing is I'm slowly cruising along our southern boundary, just in the hope that they might decide to pop right out. On a cool morning like this morning, they might decide to go for a walkabout. And I'm hoping that that might be the case and that they might emerge suddenly from the bush and decide to join us. A nice slow drive along our southern boundary. The Karula crossed just up ahead of me where the Mulwati drainage line crosses into Little Gowrie. So she might also be in the vicinity. We can keep an eye out for her. And I'm more keen to see if the lions actually decide to come back in this direction. I also really want to know, because yesterday afternoon we were looking desperately for a male that was reported to have crossed in from Arathusa, and we just couldn't find him. Granted, it started to get very rainy and very dark very quickly, but we just didn't manage to catch up with him. Apparently he was moving straight through a line through Tella and through Juma. I'm very interested to see if all 5 of the Birmingham boys are back together once again, or if they still remain as segregated as they were. And we shall slowly trundle our way down here. Now, what was interesting about that pearl-spotted owlet sighting that we had briefly, I was convinced that there was a leopard hiding in the drainage line, and it turned out to be the smallest, or one of the smallest owl species that we have, is the fact that the drongos hadn't mobbed it. And I think it's because the squirrel had spotted it, but the drongos hadn't. So they were alarm calling in response to the squirrel, but not actually physically, they hadn't physically found or seen the threat just yet. And so they were calling, but not acting upon it. It's amazing that such a tiny bird could spark such an outcry, because it's essentially for most of the animals that were fussed, that little owlet is of no threat. I don't even think a pearl-spotted owlet would go after a squirrel. I think a squirrel would be too big for it. Owls don't really have the ability to care, especially change my drainage line. Before our signal disappears, I'm going to say farewell for now and send you across to Brent.
So James is wondering how much water in Sydney's waterhole. Well, that much water. So the reason it didn't fill up as prolifically as some of the other waterholes, hello giraffe, is because it's got two little creek systems that flow into it, but they're both very short. With quite a few giraffe there. What are you looking at, giraffe? Maybe just making sure the coast is clear before coming down. Now, giraffe are expert spotters of predators. And if you see a giraffe staring intently into a bush, it can often mean that there could be a lion or a leopard there. There we go. 1, 2, 3 that we can see. Not to mean there couldn't be some more around. Oh, the little one at the back still looking towards the side. They could also just be looking at another giraffe. And they are looking very intently in that direction. So I think I'm just going to go a skosh further down the road and see what it is they might be staring at. Are we in luck? Could it be one of the Africa's big cats? Or even better, could it be an African wild dog? More than likely another giraffe or even an impala, but one must be positive and hopeful. And they're staring here. I can't see anything. And I agree with you, Linda. In Wisconsin, it is definitely time for the wild dogs to make another appearance. And what binoculars? There's a rock and a lapwing. You see anything, Brian? I think giraffe is sending us off on a wild goose chase. No, can't spot anything. It is possible they saw something small moving. Steering intently in the opposite direction, but having a nice feed on what looks to be a little copse of Acacia exuvialis, or the flaky thorn. So, welcome to Safari Live, Groove-tastical. Groove-tastical would like to know, are giraffe ever aggressive towards humans? Not at all, normally. The only time that they might be is during capture. And game capture of giraffe is quite a process. And that is only done, obviously, when moving them between reserves, which doesn't happen too often in our part of the world. But no, not aggressive towards humans. They can be quite aggressive towards lions, and a kick from those long legs is enough to actually kill a lion sometimes. It is connected in the right spot. Oh, she's found a little puddle to drink at. Unfortunately for where we are, I think this is the best view. Maybe a little bit back. Oh. Maybe a bit forward. There. There we go. Now, as she leans down to drink, you can imagine it's quite a risky business for a giraffe. Number one, eyes are down, can't see any potential predators. Number two, what would happen for the blood rush to her head? Would she not pass out? Fortunately for giraffe and evolution, or evolution's looked after them, they have a set or 7 sets of valves in their neck to stop the blood rushing to their forehead, to their head and brain, and causing them to pass out. Amazing system. They've got an absolutely massive heart to be able to pump blood around that massive body. Their heart weighs about 11 kilograms. Well over 20 pounds, just their heart. And you can see the little oxpeckers darting around her neck. And they're about to disappear out of sight. And head into the bush in Buffelshoek. Hook. The young one still following up, so we've got an adult female in front, a sub-adult in the middle, and a younger one at the back. Young one probably sitting at about 6 months old. Middle one, over a year, probably closer to 2. You can see that tail swishing away, keeping all the pesky flies at bay. Well, we'll leave the giraffe to their break fast. There we go, as they move off. Morning, Christopher, in Arizona. Christopher likes to know how much water would the fish need to resurface in the ponds and dams. I'd say there's definitely enough now to actually need even less than what we've got to make that resurface, so we will keep a lookout for them. Might be able to become quite active. But with the flying ants out, they may be feasting already. Christy would like to know, when the sun comes out, is everything going to burst into life? The bugs, the birds, the grass, the flowers. Definitely will be quite a big step up from what it is now. But as long as there's not too much sun again, because that will sort of send that back to where it was in a very short time of evaporation and heat. Ah, hello, waterbucks. Oh, there's a little one. They're not so relaxed, those ones. You can see those white bottoms disappearing. We're not going to stay with them if they don't want to be stayed with. So we are now on the western boundary of our Traverse area and searching for any sign of the Nkuma pride. See if I can get an update for the western sections. Morning mobile stations. Is any station in the west copying? Tony White, please may I have an update?
Not really any visuals on safari this morning. No, Roy is wandering in Gala there, somewhere around the Peter block.
Copy, thanks very much. I think I'm going to make my way into that area and give him a hand if there's not 3 vehicles there already.
I'm not sure maybe if you under Roy or the Pia. I'm not sure it's still working around there, but they're on Gomas on some $1 million last night. And to the night, they might have gone more south.
Copy, thanks very much. Well, there we go. Good news.
Brent, you're more than welcome to come into the area. Really, right, why did you not too far from what's under the command. General direction is south, although they're back and forth inside the block. Looks like
Copy, thanks, Douglas. I will go into area. Sorry, can you just double check which area is zoned at the moment? Okay, copy, thanks very much. Okay, good news. Tracks of the Inkauma Pride on Arathusa. Roy and Douglas in the area following up. So we're going to go give them a hand as a third vehicle. So they were on Sibambili last night. Now they've headed south towards Arathusa. So we're going to go have a look around there. Okay, so they've moved into an area called the Beads block, and that's a big block with no roads. So apparently their tracks have been going up and down and all around. So we're going to head towards there now. And fingers crossed, a little bit of feline luck is with us this morning. Pretty sure they moved from that area around One Eye Pan, sort of almost parallel to where we are now. So the general direction is south and east. So hopefully they might even pop out onto this main access road. I'm just going to let the guys in the north know the update. Squirrel alarm recording. Stations update from the west. Tracks at Inkaumas on Arathusa. Haven't been located yet. General direction south and east from about halfway between the gate and the corner or junction with Gary Man. Sounding very upset, that squirrel.
Copy that, thanks Brent. Before you drive to the western channel, confirm channel 2 on our radio is eastern.
That's affirm.
Copy that, thank you.
Could be just a bird of prey. And I can see some impala just through there in the thickets that look a little relaxed. There we go, there's one of them. Not looking too worried about anything. Except us. Oh, there he goes. Oh, another one running across the road. Full of the joy of the morning. Oh, sorry, I've got a bug in my eye. There we go, I think it's gone. Roadblock, traffic jam. Hello, mister. Oh, Speaks hinged tortoise. And look at him go. highly mobile in a northerly direction. So I know I have asked you guys this before, but I think it's time to see if everyone's been listening. So as I said, it's called a Speaks hinged tortoise. And of course, the hinged part is quite easy to work out. You can see on his back legs, he's almost got a hinge there, and he can actually close the bottom of his shell to protect his bottom. But I'm going to ask you where or who is he named after? Speaks hinged tortoise. Who was Speak? And who was his friend? And what were they most famous for discovering? There we go, as the highly mobile tortoise disappears behind the virtuality rig. We shall keep on keeping on. Kyle in Michigan. Kyle would like to know, do we have any updates on Tingana? I actually haven't heard anything since I've been back from leave, Kyle, so not to my knowledge any updates. But I'll see if I can get one from the guys in the west. Maybe he's been in the west, or he could have been in the south or the east as well. At a distance before we go any closer, but the main access road's busy this morning. There's a ground hornbill, a male ground hornbill, now they'll also be quite pleased with a bit of rain, a lot more food out and about for them. Nice and out in the open. Quite often we see them ducking and diving through the bushes. I'm going to try edge a little bit closer. It looks like he's going to cross the road into the thicker bush. Hopefully we'll be able to get a closer look when we get there. I'm just going to drive very slowly up towards him. Keeping a lookout, because quite often they can be in flocks while they're foraging. Here. You got him yet, Brian? Has he done it? Oh, there he is. Let's go. I might get a nice view from just over here. Look and see how those big red wattles are puffed up.
Coming low from the west side of Quay Central. You are some with the ticket.
Oh, what's he found? Something behind the bush there. No. We're actually quite voracious hunters. Snakes, lizards, small mammals, birds, baby ground nesting birds, ground nesting birds' eggs. Oh, he's disappeared right into that thicket now. There you go, that was a nice little interlude on our way to try and get to those lion tracks. bypass one of the delivery vehicles now on the right. Of course, living in the bush is wonderful, but everyone does need to eat and needs different things. So this is one of the main access roads used by said delivery vehicles, and this one belongs to Arafuza. Yeah, this one belongs to Arafuza. I just asked him if he managed to maybe bump some animals on his way. He said, Lutu, nothing. Okay, into Arathusa we go now. Brian, I'm expecting you to spot those lines. So the bee-eater block is where the last tracks were, is up ahead of us here. What I'm going to do is come slightly further to the east of it, just to check maybe possibly those lines haven't popped out around Knobthorn Pan and Knobthorn open areas.
Sabi Madoran Yari, yeah, transform on Triple M. Feels not that great. There's other part on the western side.
Okay. Bumpity bump. Opa. So, check around here carefully. This hard ground after the rain makes seeing the tracks that much more difficult. So well done to Nancy, Barbara, Penny, and George Ann, who got that correctly. The Speaks Hinged Tortoise is named after John Speak, the man who discovered one of the sources of the Nile. He used to travel with his companion Burton, and there's actually quite a good movie about it. Not 100% factual, but still a very entertaining movie. Quite an old movie now, called The Mountains of the Moon, which is one of the sources of the Nile, and that is in Ethiopia. But the other source of the Nile is, of course, Lake Victoria. So I just have to make a wee adjustment to the vehicle now before I head further to the west. And while we do that, let's go see what Jamie's up to in the east.
Here we go, we managed to find a different signal area once again, and it sounds as though Brent is hot on the heels of the lions that we heard calling from Treehouse Dam while we were following up on alarm calls. But apart from that, all seems very quiet out on Djuma. I don't think I can go that way. I think I'm going to lose signal down there in that dip. So we shall take Hyena Road and see if we can't spot the mysterious male leopard that's been hanging out around. Not his official, as far as I know. It's a name that appears to have stuck because he's slightly more skittish. In fact, he's much more skittish than the other leopards of the Sabi Sands. But wouldn't it be amazing to be able to know his life story and where he actually came from? It's one of those amazing things that no matter how good your fence is, you will never be able to keep out certain animals. And I just got a message from who's a very, very close friend of mine and who works at a reserve that I used to work at, where there are no wild dogs. There's not a wild dog population there. And yes, the entire... And nobody knows where they came from. I suspect they probably came in through from Baluli. And that does happen. It happened while I was working there as well. Just every now and again, a wild dog pack will come racing through, be there for about 2 days, and then they're gone again, and off they go. Do the same thing. Area. But I'll probably...
This is an interesting prospect. See, when you see something like this in front of us, now you've got to wonder, did the trees fall like that? And I would say it's... What do you think, Brian? Did that branch fall exactly like that to block the road?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I think someone has put them there because yesterday, after all that rain, this road will cross a seep line, but I can see someone has driven round. I think it's been dry for long enough now. But we're not going to be driving down there. We shall be going around. So what I had to stop to do there quickly was pop up our communication aerial. So the further we get away from Djuma, the home sort of base, we need to have an aerial up in the air so we can hear the final control. Kitty, kitty, cats, where are thou hiding? So look at that. I was saying how the flying ants or the termite alates often get very stuck in water. And we can see that has happened here. Now, I was hoping there might be some terrapins munching on them, but you probably find the terrapins have eaten so many that they're just full. So I was saying the majority of those termite alates that set off to try set up new termite colonies will die through various different means, and it seems like a pan is a veritable trap for them. But I can't see any terrapins feasting just yet. So either the terrapins haven't quite got to this pan since the rain, or they're just so full that they don't need to eat any. Normally you would see a terrapin munching through there. So, good morning to Cara, who's wondering how do the tracking teams work. Well, we only have one tracking team. It's generally the presenter who's not on drive that morning or afternoon, depending. Who will head out and just check around, generally in a vehicle. Unless they find tracks, then they'll go out on foot. But before we go out in the morning, we normally have a plan. So this morning, Jamie went to check around the last position of Karula, and I went to check where I thought I heard the lions. So we generally try to cover different areas. That way it gives us a better chance of finding you guys great game viewing. This is the B-Eater block off to the left here, where the last tracks of the Nkrumah Pride disappeared into. And hopefully Brian, from his perch above me, is going to shout Ryan very shortly. I'm just going to have to concentrate for a while. I said the tracks can be quite difficult in this hard ground. Just check carefully. And the bushes, we're looking for that sort of white underbelly of the lion. No, that's some buffalo balls.
Junction for West Crosscut.
Come on, kitty cats. Wait, I was just listening to the radio there for a second. Really slowly. They kind of zigzag because we could easily miss a track on this road in the state. I'm just going to double check and loop around a few times. Duka Pan. And the tracks were said to be...
Good morning, everybody. I'm crossing into the west. Are there any updates for me?
While we in search of the lions, let's go to an animal that got its nose on the banks of the Great Grey Green Greasy Limpopo.
Look at that. That's incredible. Mock show of dominance. They're from, it's actually 3 males. And that mounting is not a mating attempt. It is a show of dominance between them. I'm going to go forward a little bit. They've just moved out of view. It's such an interesting sighting. There's 3 bulls here. One with 1 tusk, the other 2 with 2 normal-sized tusks. And they actually appear to be bullying the male in the middle. Here he goes. He's walking away. He's done. He's crossed. There you can see he's got 1 tusk on the right, but no tusk on the left. Really interesting. I've never seen elephants bully other elephants, but that's really what this looks like. You can see he's a bit distressed. I'm giving them plenty of space, partly because I don't want to off-road too far into this block. Oh, now going for the other male. No, he's still joining in, so he doesn't obviously feel that hard done by. A young group of bulls. Trees don't matter when you are having a tussle. Pushing and shoving each other. It just goes to show you don't necessarily need tusks in order to fight back. Let's pop onto the fire break there. We should be able to get a nice clear view of them. We're lucky we're up here on the crest of a hill, so we should be fine in terms of signal. Let's see if we can't catch up with their tussle. Now this is what young elephants do. Once they've left the herd, they form these little bachelor groups and they move together and they play fight as a way of developing the skills that they're going to need in later life. I think they might come towards us before I go too much closer. Here we go. I've lost track of who's who now. I think we've got the littlest one is the one with one tusk. And he's still capable of using the one, plus pushing with his head and the base of his trunk. You can see the size difference there. They are just playing. The one on the left's decided he's not sure if he wants to be involved in this. He's not going to have a choice, though. Looks as though the largest bull is very much the aggressor. And I use aggressor very, very loosely. There's very little actual aggression happening here. It's play fighting. The temperature's tired now. I'm going to lean against this tree. Oh, no, I'm not. Going to fight some more. We can go forward a little bit. See if we can't get a clearer view that side. It's just one little bush in our way.
Yeah, they destroyed that termite.
I didn't. We'll go back there. VM spotted where they've destroyed a termite mound in their fun and games. Yes, you three. Are you having a lovely time? You can hear the clash of the tusks knocking together. Now for the one without a tusk, hey guys, just remember that I'm here, if you don't mind. Occasionally they forget such trivia when fighting each other. As you can see, the trees are paying the price for their shenanigans. Telling him to back off a little bit. The one without the tusk is the one that's on the left, and he's decided he doesn't want to be in this game. Although, every time he steps forward, the larger Ellie bull comes forward to start another skirmish. But the one missing a tusk, Clayton was wondering, if an elephant loses its tusk, will that tusk grow back? And the answer is no, Clayton. I am speaking softly in order to not disturb them at all. But Clayton, no. Elephants only have one set of tusks. I'm just going to expose. There we go. Got the microphone out. They only have one set of tusks in their lives, just like we have only one set of permanent teeth. They do actually have milk tusks when they're little, which fall out, sometimes even before they've become visible. And then they grow their permanent set that they will have for the rest of their lives, and that will grow for the rest of their lives. Hey boys, are you having fun? It's nice and cool. You can play games. They're actually on the outskirts of a breeding herd that is further down in front of us, completely ignoring the shenanigans of the young males, which they are fairly used to. There's a female standing right at the bottom there, by the looks of things. And they're right at that age where they would have just got to the point of leaving the herd or being pushed onto the outskirts of the herd. I would say the largest of them is on his own now.
Chris, come in.
While the other two, the littlest one, might still be associating with his herd to an extent. It's one of those sad aspects of a male elephant's life. It comes a time when it spells the end of his earlier life spent in the protection of the herd. Here's the one without a tusk. I was going to go forward, but I actually think they're going to come out nicely into the open. I don't want to go too much into their personal space, especially if they decide they want to start fighting again. Occasionally, when a young male elephant loses a battle, and I've seen this many times, when they lose a battle to another elephant, they decide that they want to come and take it out on you and try and, you can almost think of it as regaining their dignity or regaining their street cred, is maybe a better way of putting it, by attempting to scare the vehicle. So, our beard, you were wondering about misplaced aggression. It does happen when young elephant bulls fight, but it's very easily handled. So as long as it's not your fault for being in their space completely, you can try and get out of their way where you can. As long as it's not your fault, you can generally handle it fairly quickly. Young elephant bulls, whilst they can be cheeky, are usually all show and no action, or bark with no bite in this particular case. So they might come up, they'll make themselves big and scary, ears out and head swinging, but it doesn't really equate to all that much. That being said, you never ever work on the assumption that will always be the case. So even though it's a young bull and they're usually quite nervous of vehicles and people and they're usually quite easily handled, you don't ever take that for granted, and it's all about assessing each individual situation and making sure that you don't automatically jump to a conclusion that won't necessarily turn out to be true. Maybe that elephant actually cracked his tusk in the fight that he was having, and now he's really cross because he's got a sore tooth and a headache, and he's lost the fight, and now you're in his personal space, and then it becomes a slightly different matter. So it's important to always assess each situation individually and look at the way that the elephant's body language is conveying what he wants you to do. You don't want to, it's a fine line, you don't want to teach them that it's okay to come and intimidate vehicles and chase people. And they can learn, just like humans can. If I had to guess at their ages, I would say that the oldest one, the largest one, who's been causing the most trouble, I would guess that he is probably about close to 14, 15, whilst the other two are slightly younger, maybe just coming into their teens now. But Katie, you were wondering about how old these elephants would be. That's my rough guess. This gentleman who's using tusk, he's actually going to have, his other tusk is going to be fairly impressive. It's already quite thick and large for his age. You can't judge an elephant's age on the growth of their tusks, and once they're past a certain age, you have to remember that each individual elephant is genetically programmed to have different sized tusks. It's more about looking at their height and their behavior, and then especially their head size and the amount of the temporal glands. And I've just noticed that there's another vehicle in the sighting that I wasn't aware of, so just let me call myself in on the Game Drive channel and let them know I'm here. Station with Lamy and Love on the fire break, come in.
Chris standing by.
Hi, Chris, sorry, I've just joined your sighting. Would you mind if I make my way in a little bit later?
Yeah, you're welcome. I think they are slowly moving southwards, so if you can get in here sooner better than later, in case they get into this bush.
Copy that. Thanks, Chris. I've got some young Manolas here that are play fighting, so I'll stick here for now.
Copy that.
It's just good manners when you accidentally gate crash somebody's sighting to let them know that you are there and that you have seen them. I think we can go and see if we can get a slightly nicer view now that they've moved a bit further from the fire break itself. Hello, boys. Are you having a good game? Hmm? Now, when they're young and getting to the point of being removed from their herd, you can imagine it's something quite big and scary as a prospect for a young male elephant. All of a sudden, they no longer have the guidance of their mothers and their aunts and the protection of them. And what they do as a result is they form these little bachelor herds. And they will spend their time together, but that is not a permanent situation. So Felicity, you were wondering if they will stay in their bachelor groups for their lives. The answer is no. Look at him, he's digging with his heels. Oh, he's really digging after the nice root systems there. And he wants to throw some soil over him. Now the elephant's come in now. He's decided he's bored and that maybe he wants in on this dust bath as well. Felicity, they won't spend forever in bachelor herds. And what they'll do is they'll move in and out of them as they grow older. What they'll often do is associate with an older, much larger male and learn from his behavior before moving off. And generally the largest bulls that you see tend to move either around with other large bulls or on their own. Once they get past a certain age, they seem to enjoy their own company very much. Leaning against the tree to get to the best parts of that soil. Sometimes they've got such anthropomorphic sort of, I don't know, images, or the way their body language can be so anthropomorphic. Apart from having 4 legs and a trunk and being about 2 tons. These little guys. And then if the large males are moving about on their own, you can also see them with the breeding herds, especially when there's a female in estrus. But even then, that's not always the case. They just come along maybe when they want some female company, or just company in general. He wants to scratch, he wants to lean on the tree, and he wants to push the younger elephant out of his way. And that rocking side-to-side motion, plus digging at the same time. Doing some very impressive multitasking. Hello, little boy. Aren't you lovely? Even if you've got one tusk. Makes you different. He's been pushed out of his spot where he'd found a nice digging patch where there were fresh roots and cool soil to throw over his back. It's no longer an option, so he's come across to snack on some acacias. In a sighting like this, you can really enjoy the munching sounds that they make. Now, the point at which they get kicked out of the herd is the point really that coincides with their sexual maturity. And Kathy was wondering, how old will they be when they start breeding? And Kathy, the answer is, although they are capable of breeding at around, I would say 15, depending on the area that you're in, it usually differs from place to place, but about 15 years old, they are physically capable of reproducing. The problem is that they're not big enough to actually compete with larger males for access to the females. So unless they manage to get very lucky, maybe there's not a bigger male in the area and there's a female in estrus, unless they get very lucky, they'll probably have to wait a good 10 or so years before they are capable of competing for the attentions of the ladies. And the other reason behind that is that a cow in estrus, a female in estrus, demonstrates what's known as an estrus walk, a very almost cocky-like body posture where she wanders around with her tail in the air and trumpets and makes a lot of noise. But when the male initially approaches her, she runs away from him. And she'll make him follow her around for a considerable period of time. It can be days before she allows him to mate with her. Otherwise, she just keeps walking forward every time he attempts it. And then that means for her And a lot of animals utilize this tactic. What this means for her is that she's getting the best, or making sure that there's the best possible chance that she doesn't mate before a larger, better male comes along. So even though a young male may be courting her, it will be some time before he gets a chance to mate. And then at that point, a larger bull has most likely entered the scene and will chase him away. Interestingly, females also show a preference. Females in estrus will also show a preference for males in must. So that heightened testosterone condition that they go into on a fairly regular basis. When they're little like this, when they're young like this, it will be for shorter time periods, maybe a week or two, but it will happen more frequently. Once they reach full maturity, 30 and older, it happens for a couple of months at a time, but probably only once or twice a year. There's a slight difference there. For females, it's a very different thing. When they're ready to reproduce, also in their sort of mid-teens, they get to the stage where they come into their first estrus cycle, they will immediately accept the attentions of the male. And that's one of the reasons why elephant mating is such an incredibly short affair. The courtship is protracted, but the actual event is very, very short. That's because you've got a female that's not finished growing yet. She's probably in the region of about 2 tons, so 4,000 odd pounds, faced with a mature male elephant sitting at least 4, probably 5 or 6 tons of weight. Then she at least has to take some of that weight on her back and her pelvis. So the mating of elephants itself is a very, very quick affair, because she runs the risk of injury if it goes on for any longer. One of those interesting aspects of elephant behavior. The females don't really prolong their mating. They'll have their first calf in their late teens. And it's amazing because at that point they are relatively inexperienced. They're young and they have never had youngsters before, and yes, instinct plays a role, but that's where having a whole family of ladies with you is such a positive thing, because then mom can help you, your aunt can help you, your older sister can help you, and teach you the best ways of going about raising a youngster. And of course, they would have been practicing from when they are very young as a female. Even at 5 or 6 years old, when their mother has her next calf, they will be practicing and developing their mothering skills. And with elephants and with this drought, since we have been chatting extensively about the effect that this rain will have versus the drought, we'll probably see a decline. My suspicion would be that we'll see a slight decline in births over the next 2 years, because they have such an extended gestation period. 22 months, it's a very long time to carry a 100-kilogram baby. Can't imagine it's terribly comfortable. Because it's such a protracted gestation period, the effects of drought are felt for a slightly extended period. Then as soon as that drought is broken, 2 years after that drought is broken, then you start to see the population bouncing back from the damage it's taken. Perhaps making mincemeat of that acacia tree. Looks like a flaky thorn. Might actually be a red acacia, in which case you'll be really enjoying the sweet sap and the sweet cambium layer that runs along the outside. Whole branch straight into the mouth. Yum. The other 2 males have moved off. It seems as though the game has come to a conclusion after he well established himself, or the largest male well established himself as the victor. Roll forward a little bit. We can roll forward because we're on a nice downhill, so we won't disturb him too much. Let's have a better look at the way that he's eating a thorn tree with it going straight into his mouth. The thorns of the acacia are much softer. That's because they are modified leaves rather than modified branches. But they're a little bit softer than those of something like a sickle bush. Even so, I definitely wouldn't want to stick them in my mouth. Hey, boy, did you get dirt in your ear? Oh, and a little bit of dirt in your eye, too. I've seen elephants do that regularly. So that trunk is so useful and has so many purposes that they're actually able to use it when they've got dirt in their ear canal from throwing mud across them. They actually reach into their own ear and blow. Very useful little side use for the trunk. A swishing tail, happy elephant. Perfectly relaxed. Every sign of his body language is telling us that he's comfortable with our presence. Hasn't presented us with the most attractive of views, though. There's the tufts on the hairs, or the hairs on the end of the tail. Those are incredibly stiff and bristly, those hairs. And he uses them as a very useful fly swatter. Anything that might irritate him or bug his skin. And an elephant's skin is surprisingly sensitive in an interesting way. So although it's not, they can walk through dense vegetation, they can get scratches from thorns that doesn't even make an imprint on their skin. They still have hairs all around their body, even though they don't look very hairy as mammals in general. They've got stiff, bristly hairs, so it gives them a wider perception, working almost like whiskers in a way. Gives them a more three-dimensional sense of space. So whilst their skin doesn't have pain or as sensitive pain receptors as ours might, we can't go stumbling through the bushes in the same way they can. They still are sensitive to what's going on around them. So a fly, whilst not painful or hurting them, is an irritation more than anything else. Let's go and have a look at the breeding herd. Let's see if we can manage, since our bulls have moved further off the road. I don't want to go after them. It's very, the soil is still very soggy and damp. I don't want to leave deep ruts. Every now and again, particularly when females are being harassed by males, they can break into a very rapid ground-eating jog. Which brings me to the answer of Safari Dean's, or to Safari Dean's question, which is, do elephant herds ever stampede in the same way buffalo do? Not quite to the same extent, largely because they're not as nervous as buffalo are. There's not that much out there that is of serious threat to them, for the most part. But they can, when one gets a fright, it often transmits to the others, and you'll see them all start to run in the same direction. It doesn't last as long as buffalo running away does. And generally it is curbed by the rumbles of one of the females in the herd. So probably the matriarch or one of the other older females will give a deep, low-frequency call to say to everybody, and you can literally interpret it as it happens. It's incredible. To calm everybody down, you can feel her saying, relax, it's okay. Obviously not in those words. I'm not saying that elephants can talk like we understand it, but the message is the same. Hello, little one. Where's the rest of your family gone? Duck my head down so we can have a look. Looks like another, maybe it's a young female. So you can see her clearly. Those tusks are a little bit big, though. I think it's a young male, also on the outskirts of the herd. Been left behind. Hello, boy. What's up? It's a very similar age group to the ones that we were watching before. Maybe a fraction younger, but also at that teenage stage, at which point they become outsiders to their own family. And the elephants at the moment seem to be loving the wet soil and the root systems underneath it. I've seen at least 4 of them digging like this now, using the back of the heel to dig. Sometimes the toenails also come into play if they push their leg forward. And that motion, particularly in river sand, can shift a surprising amount of dirt. They're able to dig out underground water in that way. The sensitive trunks constantly close to the ground and sniffing for something that might be delicious, that is not necessarily visible. And once they've pinpointed where it is, then they'll use their trunks and their feet to dig it out. There you go, he's found something. Does that look like a tuber? It could be. I think he found some kind of tuber there. Similar looking to a sort of potato. You often see them digging those out. Important note to remember if you ever, I'm not quite sure how this would occur, but if you ever find yourself in a survival situation in the bush, do not automatically assume that what is good for an elephant is good for you. They're capable, their bodies are capable of processing toxins that we cannot begin to handle. They eat tambuti trees, for example. When they're feeling a little bit unwell, they will consume a tambuti tree. But for humans, 1 teaspoon of the milky latex of a tambuti will probably kill you. And that's an important aspect to remember, that what's edible for animals is not necessarily edible for us. Usually, as a general rule, what baboons go for and munch on is usually a safer bet in terms of what will be safe for people as well. Definitely don't go wandering after an elephant herd and imitating what they're eating. Something's fascinating him there. Moving sticks and twigs out of the way. And one thing we haven't seen much of that elephants generally absolutely love is the marula fruits. It's because of the drought, the marula trees haven't been able to produce their usual stock of fruits, something that is delicious for both human beings and elephants. And Pirate Jack has heard a little bit of a rumor that's been going around for many years and was probably propagated by a film known as The Gods Must Be Crazy, which is hilarious, by the way. It's an old movie, but I would definitely recommend watching it. Highly, highly entertaining. But Pirate Jack has heard that elephants will ferment.
Beautiful people. Animals are beautiful people.
Animals are beautiful people. Is that what?
Same
is that
director, yeah.
Same director? That's where it's from. Thank you, Viam. Viam's correcting me. It was from Animals Are Beautiful People, but the same maker as The Gods Must Be Crazy. South African films. And Pirate Jack's heard that elephants will store, I must say this is a new one for me, they will store marula fruit in their trunk in order to produce alcohol and get slightly tipsy on it. I've heard about them eating rotten marulas and then getting tipsy. It isn't the case. Now, each marula fruit, however much it may ferment and produce a bit of alcohol, they are not going to be able to consume enough to put them on the drunk side, or even the tipsy side. That if you think about the volume that it produces versus the volume of the elephant itself, it would probably have to eat somewhere in the region of about 500 odd kilograms of rotten fermented marula fruit in one go. And it would have to be very lucky to find marula fruit that had got to that stage, because the monkeys and the baboons and the impalas will have scoffed them up first. So no, elephants don't get drunk on marula fruit. Human beings, on the other hand, are a very different story. There is several traditional drinks made from marula fruit, but generally involve weeks' worth of preparation, depending on exactly how potent you wish the product to be. Very, very common drink, much appreciated by local people in this area. I would warn all, beware. It can, whilst it has very capable of having very little effect on a 2-ton or 3-ton or 6-ton elephant, we are not quite of that weight, and we are not quite up to the same standards of consumption. He's got a crown of dirt on the top of his head that I've only just noticed, so he's obviously been throwing dirt up over his skull as well. There is an amazing scene, now that I'm thinking about it, it's in my head now. There's an amazing scene in The Gods, I think it's The Gods Must Be Crazy, where the protagonist is attempting to drive a vehicle through a gate, but it's a vehicle that he cannot turn off because the battery is dead and kaput, so he can't start it again. But the handbrake doesn't work, and the gate is situated on a slope. And it is strike so true for most of us who have, throughout our lives, dealt, not in this case, our Wild Earth vehicles are very well maintained and looked after, but almost all of us as guides have experienced vehicles that don't have working handbrakes or starter motors or something similar, and trying to get out and do something when you're on your own driving them, and then for them not rolling backwards down a hill is an interesting experience, something that we all relate to terribly. But it has been responsible for the odd rumor, for example, that rhino will go crashing through bushes in order to put out human beings' fires and stamp all over them. They don't do that, neither do buffalo. They don't come charging through the bush in order to do that. A couple of, what were the words? It's not an idiosyncrasy, anachronisms. Anachronisms and slight stretches of the truth. Still worth a watch if you have the opportunity. Just want to get, actually he's going to walk across in front of us. I think he's going to move further towards the herd and into thick bush. That little fast walk he did away told me that he was a little, not unhappy, he just didn't appreciate the engine noise at that moment. He just wanted to move away from it. So I'm going to let him cover some ground before I move the vehicle. Slowly disappearing off after the herd. I don't think I can follow the herd into the dense vegetation. I also don't think that we'll have signal down in that drainage line. So I'm going to continue on in the hope that the hyenas will be out of their dens and playing around in this cool weather. While I do that, let's find out how Brent's lion search is going.
So guys, we're still on these lion tracks. Unfortunately, they're proving to be a little bit difficult this morning. So we've got tracks of a single lioness here. And can you see this one here, Brian? Is that too close? So you can see she's been stalking here, and then the tracks carry on, and then where is it? Here we start seeing a little bit of claws. And then here you can actually see the indentations deeply. And she's put the claws out and taken off after something. She's missed, because these running tracks don't go very far before they stop. She's probably only run about 20 meters before she's given up the ghost. But if you have a look now, from the normal steps, we're going to go all of a sudden, boom. So she's really moving now. So she's definitely charged after something. Unfortunately for her, or fortunately for whatever she was chasing, she didn't catch it. But they are definitely in the area. There's a couple of other guys also trying to find them. So hopefully we'll have a little bit of luck before the end of the safari. So I think we're going to continue on now, see what else we can find. We're going to go check on the western side of the drainage system to see if there are any more tracks there. But it does look like all the lionesses are split at the moment, making it much more difficult for us to track them. Bye, guys. While we were tracking that lioness, we can hear the Birmingham boys well to the south. And we're just going to go very carefully. And there we go, there's Sean's tracker. And it's really difficult to see tracks on this very hard ground. I'm going to check towards the old borehole.
With close in Dela. That valid in Dela. Check that one inside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can see we put locks. Maybe that one.
But is it too much muddy there to drive?
You're more of a light, you can.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Yvonne. Cheers. Yeah, so he's saying we should check a road that they've closed due to mud. But he says in my light vehicle we should be okay. So there's literally tracks crisscrossing everywhere. I just really wanted to show you those fantastic galloping lion tracks. And incredible to think a lion has such acceleration. And they go from 0 to about just under 90 kilometers an hour in absolutely no time. And a lion at full speed does about 20 meters per second. But being an ambush predator, they can't keep that up for too long. They've got to be relatively close to actually succeed. Oh, Brian's peering down into this drainage system. And this is where we sort of think they are, somewhere in this block here. So it does look like the pride's been split up while hunting. We've seen tracks of them chasing zebra, giraffe, and in that last case, wildebeest and impala. But if they'd been successful, we would definitely hear them.
Good few minutes now, audio. But last time most of the plot is Sabi.
It is a cool morning, so they could keep moving.
What are you Googling? I heard you earlier.
So Simon said while I was chatting away, the radio was talking about Nyari, and that's buffalo. And Simon would like to know a few more other Shangaan words for animals. I think one of my favorites is Shinzele, which is a honey badger. And the more basic ones are Ingwe, which is a leopard, Saha. And the actual proper Shangaan name for a lion is Ngwanyama, the one who eats meat. Oh, I spotted something through that gap there. And it is a lion-like log, I'm afraid. We're going to keep checking very carefully around here. Come on, Brian. Spot us a lion. See, the one problem is they could be lying up above here, and this area has got a very serious couple of seep lines in, so even if we do find them, we might not be able to drive off-road to them. Vultures in the tree, but there are a lot of vulture nests in this area. Oh. Is that a leopard-faced vulture? If that's a leopard-faced, then it might be worth taking a walk here. It's a leopard-faced vulture. Now there, I think we're on a different vulture there, Brian. There we go. So there's 2 white backs and a leopard-faced. And I haven't seen any leopard-faced nests in this area, so that could mean there is some food there. So I'm going to have to go have a stroll. And before I do that, the Shangaan name for that big vulture, or for vultures in general, is Makoti. But speaking of Shangaan, let's go across to Jamie, who's got a Nongo.
Let's go. There's a little baby kudu over there. They are going to move off soon, but I just wanted to show you in case it disappears off. Tiny little youngster there goes skipping after mom. And now we can tail up. They're always so entertaining to watch, little kudu, because they get left behind and then have a minor panic and go racing after mom. Impossible to tell who mom is. I imagine that she's a female a little further ahead of the baby. I don't think that's the mother. You never know, though. And at only maybe a couple of weeks old, it's astounding how powerful those thin legs are to be able to keep up with the long strides of mom and the rest of the group. That's definitely not mom, little one. Might be older brother, but it's not mom. See how tolerant he is of the calf. Something to feed. There's no way that that young male is the kudu's father. Kudu dads don't play much of a role in the upbringing. But look at that. Calf, and plus he's far too young on that subject. Calf reached up and gave him a nuzzle. Maybe just sniffing to see who he was and if there was a possibility of a meal. And I think you'll probably find, it's always a bit tricky, but you'll probably find that that's the mother there behind the calf. Because the calf hasn't glanced off anxiously and dashed away to catch up with the rest of the group. A couple of weeks old, already on solid food, as is essential, because you want to take that load off mom's body as soon as possible, and also be able to fend for themselves as quickly as possible. And I did tell the story of the little baby kudu that we saw in Kruger, that had clearly been separated from mom at some point during the night, either by a leopard or wild dogs, maybe even lions. It was so desperate for contact and to find its mom that it completely had no natural fear of us in our vehicle or us on foot. We stopped at the park gate to get out and enter the park and go and pay the fees and everything else that we have to do. And this little kudu came right up to me, I mean right up, and started making the contact calls, that funny little bleat that they do. Really, it sounds a bit like an antelope burp. We came up and investigated, and by the time we'd come back to try and see if we could do anything about it, it had wandered off somewhere into the bush. And hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be okay, but not if it wanders about going blop and drawing attention to its presence. Little ones moved off, and so have the rest of the kudu. And we shall continue on for our last few moments of the sunrise safari, try and see if we can get to the hyena den in time before the end. Hopefully Brent will be able to follow up on those lions as well before we reach the close of the sunrise safari. Brent's gone for a walk to investigate vultures. Apparently James was doing something similar around Ledwood Road, but I haven't heard from him this morning, so whatever it is, he obviously hasn't found it. I know that James also quite enjoys taking himself off into the bush with a book and something that's wonderful to do, and go and wander through and just go sit under a tree and read for a little bit. Those moments of peace and tranquility are very precious out here. No, Wendy doesn't quite at the moment have the same power that Jigger and Rusty have. Have to just stay with a bit of an acceleration noise for now. racing towards the hyena den. And I was wondering whether or not they managed, because I know that James found that warthog carcass that the Birmingham boy abandoned from 2 days ago. I was wondering whether or not any of the hyenas might have decided to drag it back to the den site. We'll just have to wait and see if there's any evidence of that. And they do that, just contrary to what initial research suggested. Initially, researchers said that it was only brown hyena that took food back to the den site. Seems as though now they've changed their minds, and we've seen from pure observation that it's the higher-ranking spotted hyena females that are able to bring or drag den food back to the den site. And it's one of the reasons why their cubs also lactate, or no, the cubs don't lactate, the females lactate for longer. The higher ranking the female, the better access she has to food and to kills, and less she has to compete for it, for the scraps at the end. And that means that she's capable of producing milk for longer. I think you'll probably find, if you dug or delved really deeply into the survival rates of different cubs, you'll probably find that the higher ranking females have a higher survival rate than the lower ranking females. That's not backed up, as far as I know, by any conclusive firm evidence, but it's been observed by different researchers around Africa. And it seems a natural, logical extension of the way in which their societies work. They're just coming round onto Aubrey's Road. Now, yesterday when I paid a visit to the hyena den, there was one little cub, one of the matriarch's cubs, sticking its head out. And I suggested, because it's not all that common to see cubs come out when there aren't any adults in the vicinity, I suggested it might be a little bit uncomfortable and a bit damp in there. And Wicked Ange was wondering, when it rains as it did, will the hyena den become flooded or uncomfortable or damp for the hyena cubs? And I imagine that they have tunnels where maybe the water can't quite reach into. They also are known to build shelves in the den site itself. So the nice big open tunnels will have little shelves where the hyenas can rest out of the reach of the water. But at the same time, I still think it must get fairly damp. It's not impossible that a hyena den would flood, but it's fairly unlikely. They specifically choose the dens and utilize them year after year due to their versatility and the fact that they are specifically chosen for their suitability is maybe the best word. Here we go. Already see somebody out and about. Looks like it might be November, who has grown tremendously from that little ball of fluff to a little miniature of the adults. Now the nice thing is, when we come in like this, very often they come up to say hello to the car. They're at that age. Oh, hello, madam. I see you with your full belly. Looks as though the hyenas have feasted last night. I'll get a view of them soon. Hello, you lot. Mischiefs. Mischiefs. Yes, you. I'm talking to you. You're a mischief. You tried to chew my car last time. Looks as though it might actually be not Madam, but Corky, and one of the December twins, plus June. Hello, you lot. Having a good sniff around where female anal pasted. That's interesting. Sorry, hyenas. Maybe we should have called first, because it seems as though they actually are entertaining visitors to the den site. Actually, have a look here, Viam. I'm going to go forward a little bit. They're drinking from a pan. There's a family of giraffe here. I'm not going to have the best view, but they are drinking from a pan. So from a puddle, one of the things that we were talking about before. Here comes the youngster. Let's go and see if they'll let us get closer. That's what I mean when I said that the hyenas were entertaining guests. We've got a journey of giraffe in the area. It looks like that female with her young calf, possibly a male behind it. I'm coming back to you, hyenas, you little monsters. Just want to see if we can't get a clear view. Hello, Corky. Corky looks as though she swallowed a beach ball. Somebody's had a really big meal last night. It's about as good a view as we're going to get, unfortunately. Let's just see if they drink again. I can't actually see any water there. Might not have been drinking, might actually have been reaching down to investigate bones. And that makes sense. In fact, she looks as though she is crunching on something. Because hyenas bring carcasses back to the den site, their den sites are littered with bones. And I think that's what she was reaching down to get, because it doesn't make sense for there to be any water up on the top of this crest. She was reaching down, a practice that giraffe very commonly do, known as osteophagy, or the eating of bones, the consuming of bones to supplement their calcium intake. I want to get across to the other side of the den before Corky decides to wander off and we lose our hyena cubs down the holes. Hello, June. Are you coming to investigate? I see you. A question from Kathy Pickles as we approach one of my favorite predators. Kathy was saying hyenas are from the dog family, are they not? Which is a very, very common, Kathy, that's a very common misperception because they look like dogs. You can see there's a very canine shape to them. Their heads look very canine-like. But I can understand completely why people draw that conclusion. They are not. They are part of their own family that does not fall under the cat or the dog title. So all of the predators are grouped together under the carnivora order, and below that there are the Felidae, so the cats, the Canidae, the dogs, and the Hyenidae, the hyenas, totally separate. If we go far enough back in the evolutionary design, cats and hyenas stemmed from the same ancestor long ago. I'm talking a good couple of 100,000 years. So they are more, in theory, more closely related to cats than to dogs, but that's just an evolutionary line. Oh dear, don't go off that way, little one. This is what I was thinking about. Corky's going to wander into some very dense bush. There goes a little December twin running after her. Here's Corky. I really wanted to show you how large her belly is, but this is a fairly sensitive off-roading area. I'm happy to off-road around the den site because there's already an established road here, but I don't really want to go crashing through there for our last few moments. Let's just sit here for now and see if the cubs decide to come back. They won't follow, at December's age, they won't follow Corky too far before they get afraid, or before the little one at least gets afraid and decides to come dashing back towards the den. Then if we're lucky, they might come and investigate us. But Corky's on her way off to find somewhere nice to lie down for the day. With that enormous belly, she's got plenty of digesting to do. I wonder what it was that they fed on at some point last night. It could have been that warthog, although I don't think the warthog would have produced a belly like that. They must have found a buffalo carcass, or they hunted a buffalo of part of that herd maybe that Brent was with earlier this morning. Those giant bellies, very, very full, might actually be from a fresh kill. Hyenas hunt as much as, or are capable of hunting as much as they scavenge, and are actually, in terms of success rate, probably one of the most successful animals. far more successful than lions are at hunting. Since our hyenas have gone away, I'm trying to think about how to reposition for our giraffe. So Siberia Zumi has pointed out that perhaps hyenas are more closely related to mongoose, which is something that I mentioned, that there is a level of, there is a connection there between mongoose, the Herpestidae family, and the Viverridae family, so the genets, as well as the Mustelidae family, which is the honey badgers. And the reason behind that is because they actually have an anal gland that functions in a very similar way to those animals. So at some point there's also that common ancestry in that direction. It would be a bit of a stretch to say that a hyena is a mixture between a cat and a mongoose, but there are connections to both evolutionary lines in that sense. So perhaps when I did, because I did mention that, that's where Siberia Zumi got that from, so I did mention that there was that connection. Perhaps I didn't make it clear. And in fact, I remember at the time thinking that I didn't make that as clear as I should have, that it's a level that I wouldn't say they're more closely related to, but they also have a degree of relatedness to mongoose families, to the mongoose and all of the other animals that are unified by the presence of that anal gland and capable of those anal gland secretions. In terms of the large carnivores, though, hyenas are the only ones that, the little baby giraffe wandering away, they're the only ones. The female's gone down once again. She's right behind the tree, bending over to investigate. I wonder what they're after. I'm sure they're after bones. This, unfortunately, is as clear as our view is going to get. Short of my driving up to the hyena den, which I don't want to do. It's very rude to drive right up to somebody's front door. You can't really drive along the side of a hyena den like that, especially since there are definitely cubs hiding in there and sleeping in there. It's been done in the past, and something that people have been, in other areas that I've worked in, and people have been severely reprimanded for attempting to drive right up to the hole and have a look down it. Hello, girls, what are you after? Giraffe youngsters grow incredibly rapidly. Deborah, who is our self-professed armchair traveler, was wondering at what age giraffe will, or up until how old, will giraffes stay with their mothers. And you'll probably find that, Deborah, there's a difference between males and females. But once they reach sexual maturity at around 2 or so, it will be time for them to leave. I suspect you'll find that males might go a little bit earlier than the females, just to head out on their own mission. But yes, they've got at least a year and a half before they start to move on, probably closer to 2.5 years. And they can actually stay with their mothers for a while after that. So even though they have reached sexual maturity, for females, not so much for males, but for females especially, they might decide to stay with their moms and actually form a little herd for a while. That doesn't mean they might go off on their own for a while and then come back. Particularly when they come into estrus, they might go off in search of greener pastures and then return to their mother or meet up with their mother once again, once they've had the babies. So whilst giraffe don't have strict territories, they do have home ranges, which is why we regularly see the same individual giraffe. And just like any animal, you can identify the giraffe by their spot patterns. Each one does have a unique spot pattern. And they will move through like that. There's no sign of our hyenas returning, and our giraffe are very hidden. Evie's asked me a question, quite a complex question, about the hyena den dynamics, because we saw Corky earlier. I'm going to try and get you another view of these giraffe, but I don't think it's going to be terribly clear. Just to give you something to look at other than myself. Evie was wondering, we know that there is the matriarch. Her name is Madam. She has 2 daughters. I suspect they're her daughters, Corky and Pretty. If they are not her daughters, they are definitely related to her in some way. And they fall just below her in terms of rank. Evie wants to know whether I consider Corky or, there you go, bending down again. What have they got there? Maybe there is a puddle. Let's see if it comes up with a bone. Sorry, Evie, I will get back to your question, I promise. Let's just see what this giraffe is after. Bending right down. Didn't come up with a bone that I could see. Maybe there are puddles of water. I don't see any. Doesn't make sense in this particular soil type either. Must be bones. They must be investigating bones. And I think that, there we go. There's one that's actually, you can physically see, is chewing on a bone. They pull the most amazing faces. There you go. There's the bone popping out. Munch, munch. They don't swallow the bones. They just chew off the outside layers. And at some point, will spit it out. That's exactly what I was going to say. Evie, let me just answer your question quickly. The answer is I don't know who is higher ranking, whether it is Corky or Pretty. You might find that they are very much close to each other in terms of rank. And that's the general answer. Researchers struggle for years at a time in order to be able to determine the ranks and the social structure of hyena. So I don't know. I suspect, if I had to be pushed for an answer, I suspect that it's Pretty. But to me, they are so close together in terms of their hierarchy that I wouldn't really be able to give you an accurate answer. And generally, I try to avoid giving absolutes when it comes to hyenas in general. They're just such complex animals to understand, and I personally don't think we know everything there is to know about them. I don't think researchers do either. And on that note, I feel that way about a lot of this in natural environment that we get to share. It's what makes it so very exciting to head out and explore and observe different behavior. Coming to the end of our sunrise safari, I'm going to say a big thank you to VM for his wonderful camera work as always. And of course, always a big thank you to the viewers for joining us on our largest safari vehicle and for sending through your questions and your comments. We'll catch up with you for the Sunset Safari. Have a wonderful day and spend your last few moments with the marvelous Brent. Cheers, guys.
So unfortunately, the Nkuhuma's got the best of us and it started to rain. So we started having to move out of that area. But it looks like they chased multiple different animals. Unfortunately, what I think happened with those vultures is that the leopard-faced vultures saw 2 or 3 whitebacks sitting there and went, ooh, they must have found something, and swooped down, but there was nothing. I only found very live impala. So unfortunately, they are definitely still in that area somewhere. There's just individual tracks all over the place. So hopefully, we'll have a little bit more luck on the Sunset Safari if the weather holds. Cloud cover has got lower and lower as we've been going on today. And as you can see, I'm probably sure you can see the few spots of rain on the lens at the moment. So hopefully it rains after the Sunset Safari, not during. And we'll be able to find those lions. And who knows, maybe Karula will come back from a visit. It's possible that she's just gone back to feed the cubs and then she will be back on the prowl on the Sunset Safari. So unfortunately the Birminghams can be heard calling well south of us. And it almost sounds like they're heading, 2 of them are heading towards where the Matimba males have been seen at Londolozi. They've crossed into Londolozi, so very, very interesting stuff. But from Brian and myself here, it's been great. And don't forget to join us on the Sunset Safari for another live safari drive.